The lawyer's office smelled like leather and disappointment. Karen sat rigidly in an overstuffed chair as attorney Jeffrey Morrison delivered news that made her world tilt sideways. Mrs. Whitmore, I've reviewed the case, and frankly, you don't have a leg to stand on. Federal law supersedes HOA regulations when it comes to flag display, especially for veterans. But the regulations clearly state, the regulations are illegal. Morrison's words hit her like a slap. If you pursue this, he could sue the HOA for harassment and win. You're looking at potential damages, legal fees, and serious reputation damage. Karen left the office feeling like she'd been hollowed out with a spoon. For 3 years, she'd built her identity around being the neighborhood's guardian of order. Now she was being told her carefully constructed kingdom of rules was built on sand. That evening, she sat in her living room, staring at her own small American flag, a cheap drugstore version she'd bought years ago for Memorial Day. When was the last time she'd actually thought about what it meant? A knock at her door interrupted her brooding. Rodriguez stood on her porch, his expression unreadable. "Can I come in? We need to talk." They sat in her sterile living room, an ocean of awkward silence between them. Finally, Rodriguez spoke. "My unit lost 3 men in Afghanistan. That flag out there. It flew over our base the day we came home. Every morning when I see it, I remember why we fought." Karen felt something crumble inside her chest. I didn't know. You never asked." His voice wasn't angry, just tired. "You saw a rule violation. I saw a memorial." The next morning, Karen did something she'd never done before. She walked over and knocked on Rodriguez's door properly. "I owe you an apology," she said when he answered, "and an explanation." They talked for 2 hours. She told him about her ex-husband leaving, about how controlling the neighborhood had become her way of controlling something in her chaotic life. He told her about adjusting to civilian life, about finding purpose after the military. "The HOA isn't evil," Rodriguez said finally. "You just forgot that behind every house is a human being with a story." 3 weeks later, the HOA held its monthly meeting with a new agenda item: community first, compliance second. Karen watched nervously as Rodriguez stood to address the room. "Mrs. Whitmore and I had our differences," he said, "but she's shown real leadership in making changes. I'd like to propose something." He outlined a neighborhood veteran appreciation program, complete with memorial garden and annual flag ceremony. The room erupted in applause. As the meeting ended, Bob Chen approached Karen. "You know, there's been talk about replacing you as president." Karen's heart sank. "I understand. They want you to stay," he said, grinning. "Apparently, admitting you're wrong and changing course takes more courage than people thought." Walking home under the streetlights, Karen paused at Rodriguez's house. His flag waved gently in the evening breeze, and for the first time, she saw it not as a violation, but as a promise. But as she reached her own door, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. A SAAE sign in the Hendersons' yard that definitely wasn't there that morning. And it was crooked. Very crooked. Old habits, after all, die hard. Karen Whitmore stood on her perfectly manicured lawn at 6:47 a.m. Measuring tape in one hand, citation book in the other, jaw agape at the sight before her. The new neighbor's American flag was flying exactly 14 3/4 inches too high according to Willowbrook Heights HOA Regulation 17B, subsection 4. "This is completely unacceptable," she muttered, marching across the street in her pristine white tennis shoes. She didn't bother knocking. Karen never bothered knocking. "Excuse me," she called through the screen door. "Your flag is in violation." A gruff voice responded from inside. "Lady, it's not even 7 in the morning. The HOA doesn't sleep, sir. I'm Karen Whitmore, president of the Willowbrook Heights Homeowners Association, and that flag needs to come down immediately." The door opened to reveal Staff Sergeant Miguel Rodriguez, still in his Army PT uniform, sweat glistening from his morning run. Behind him, Karen glimpsed military medals displayed on the mantel and a folded flag in a glass case. "Ma'am, with respect, that flag isn't coming down for anybody." Karen's eyes narrowed. She'd been HOA president for 3 years, and nobody challenged her authority. Regulation 17B clearly states, I don't care what it states. That flag represents something bigger than your little neighborhood rules. The tension crackled between them like electricity. Karen's perfectly curled blonde hair practically bristled with indignation. This was her neighborhood, her domain, and this military man thought he could just waltz in and ignore her carefully crafted system of order. Fine, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerously sweet tone. Then we'll do this the hard way. Over the next 3 days, Karen launched what she privately called Operation Compliance. She issued 17 separate violations. Flag height, grass length. One blade measured 2.1 inches. Improper mailbox font, and even excessive patriotic displays, after Rodriguez hung a small POW/NIA flag beside his front door. Each morning, she'd find him in his driveway, calmly drinking coffee and reading her citations before crumpling them up. The sight made her blood boil. You can't just ignore these, she shrieked during their third encounter. Watch me, Rodriguez replied, taking another sip of coffee. That evening, Karen called an emergency HOA board meeting. The other members, mild-mannered accountant Bob Chen and retired librarian Mrs. Henderson, sat nervously as Karen paced like a caged animal. This man is undermining everything we've built here, she declared. If we let one person break the rules, chaos follows. Property values plummet. Our perfect neighborhood becomes ordinary. Bob shifted uncomfortably. Karen, maybe we could make an exception. He is a veteran. No exceptions. Karen slammed her gavel so hard it left a dent in Mrs. Henderson's antique table. Rules are rules. I'm calling our lawyers. But as Karen drove home that night, seeing Rodriguez's flag illuminated by his porch light, something twisted in her stomach. For the first time in years, she wondered if she was fighting the wrong battle.